just beautiful. Right now, we welcome in Hans von Spakovsky, who is a legal analyst with the Heritage Foundation. Hans, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing okay. Can I get some of those cupcakes from
Sure.
Cupcake Brigade?
Cupcakes Against Hate was the name of the group when Alan West was going to show up and speak on the St. Louis University campus. All these people protested him coming because of his radical Islam statements, and they organized a group called Cupcakes Against Hate, and they started selling cupcakes. They're very easily offended at St. Louis University. It doesn't take much.
Yeah, well, it sounds like it.
It's kind of sad. So, speaking of the millennials and the people who take selfies a lot, Justin Timberlake apparently risked some legal problem by taking a selfie of himself in the voting booth. And Hans, from what I can tell, the law on this is very different in every state.
It is, and what we're talking about is many states prohibit you from taking a photograph or a video inside a polling place. And if people are sitting there going, well, why do they do that? It actually makes sense because the point is one, they don't want fake folks taking pictures of how somebody else might be voting, because that could destroy the secrecy of the ballot box. But the other thing is that they don't want people taking a photo of their own ballot the way they filled it out, because then that could help them get paid for a vote, because they can walk out of the polling place and say, here's evidence that I voted the way you wanted me to. And unfortunately, vote buying still goes on around the country. So Tennessee's got a law against this. Timberlake may have violated it because he took a selfie. But look, all the stories about this didn't point out something else that I thought was kind of strange, which is celebrity websites all say that he lives in California. He's got a $8 million house in the Hollywood Hills, and I was sitting there going, well, what's he doing voting in Memphis, Tennessee?
Exactly.
And so I actually looked at the Secretary of State of Tennessee's website to see, well, how do they determine residency for voting purposes, and it's the place where you live and where you intend to return. You can only have one residence, and if in fact he lives in California, then he was violating Tennessee law when he went back to Memphis to vote. Now, apparently that's where he's from, that's his hometown, but if he doesn't live there anymore, he doesn't have a right to be voting there.
So it sounds, just for clarification, I've seen the Missouri Secretary of State's office address this issue, and I think in the state of Illinois they've addressed this issue. Apparently, Illinois enforces this more strictly than Missouri does, but who's in charge of the enforcement if you're caught taking a picture in a voting place?
Most secretaries of state don't have prosecution authority, so it's going to have to be either a local district attorney, or in some states, I suppose the state attorney general can do it, but usually it's going to be whoever the local DA is.
Oh, I see. So it would be up to the local municipality almost, or the local county in our situation here in St. Louis County, to enforce something like this if somebody was accused of taking photos in a polling place. You know, the thing about this is it's almost like they need some new legislation to address it, because it's people taking selfies is just, it's like second nature these days, particularly among younger people.
Right, and it's something new that nobody had really, I think, thought about in terms of behavior inside a polling place.
Right. Yeah, I personally, I guess I understand where you're coming from on that, on the fact that it makes sense on one hand if you're doing it to try to intimidate somebody, but I mean, I looked at the picture of Timberlake, and while I think he's a goofball, you can't tell from the picture how he voted. He's just holding up a picture of his voter ID card or something and standing in front of one of these electronic machines.
Right, and you know, if I was a local prosecutor, given that photo, I probably wouldn't prosecute him for that. I would use prosecutorial discretion, as it's called, to not prosecute him for it. But given the other facts about the issue of where he actually lives, that is something that I would want to investigate, because Yeah, he may be a celebrity, but that doesn't mean that he can break the laws about not voting someplace where you're living. Because we actually have a real problem with that. You know, the Pew Trust study on voter registration systems across the country that was released a couple of years ago said there were almost 3 million Americans who were registered in more than one state. And there have been prosecutions across the country of people voting in different states in the same election, which is illegal.
Yeah. Yeah, that's unbelievable. Hans von Spakovsky, listen, I appreciate your time, and thanks so much.
Sure thing, anytime.
Have a great weekend, and you can read more on Hans' thoughts on this story and more at their website there at heritage.org. I wanted to get him on to talk